how the most important part is the mental part of hiking. And it absolutely is. Um, and I think we probably all prepare for a hike physically totally different. I am notorious for simply turning up on day one and starting to walk. And it's not a good idea. Let me tell you, it isn't, because you feel like you either feel like you're going to die, or you feel like you have died within about 10 minutes. And everybody prepares differently. So I thought what we should do, is talk about how we prepare. And I can tell you, and I know some of you listen to my podcast, some do, some don't. But my recent hike in California, I did prepare for the first time ever. It may not appear it, but I lost 20 pounds in weight. And that certainly helped. I cut out all added sugars, and I cut out booze for 3.5 months. And I don't know which I missed the most, actually. But anyway, the cutting out booze was great for allowing for me to hydrate better. I was still a slow hiker, but I was able to do it far better than I actually thought I would. And losing weight helps as well, because when I went on my first AT hike, I was 245 pounds. I had a 42-pound pack, so I'm carrying 300 pounds nearly uphill, and that isn't good for anybody, you know. So trying to get your weight down as much as possible, or at least the combination of your body or your of your pack, get it down as much as possible, because every pound does make a difference, I promise you. And I know that when I went the second time, my pack was about 15 pounds lighter. So I was taking stuff that I didn't need to take. You know, that expression, don't pack your fears. I must have packed all my fears, and there were 15 pounds worth of fears. So physicality, we all prepare differently. As I say, I didn't do much, and I've always said to people, if you've got your head right, you know, the physicality will be fine. It will follow. You will get it. But I suspect you will find it easier if you have prepared. And you've said you've actually have prepared, haven't you? You've been training. Have the rest of you trained for this? What do you do? What do you do?
I hike with my pack loaded. We have timber property next to our property, so I hike every day over there. It's all up and down. And,
Right.
yeah.
And are you getting fitter because of it?
Oh yeah, I can tell the difference.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, I mean, Georgia's not an easy state to start. If you are going to start in the south, people say, "Oh, Georgia's easy." I think it's difficult. You know, there's lots and lots of hills to negotiate, and lots of switchbacks and so on. And I know every 15 or 20 yards when I first start hiking, I'm gasping for breath and trying to get rid of the lactic acid out of my legs. So I'm not going to be any great help in terms of physicality. What do you do? Because you have the biggest problem of all, having to start from scratch every time.
So I'm probably not any different than your typical. I probably do, until recently, if I have a hike planned that I want to do in the summer, or maybe I want to take a trip in the spring. Mighty Blue used to call me the serial section hiker, but I'm more of a serial day hiker. So I actually have two different systems. I have a day pack, and what I do, what I guess a thru hiker would call it slack packing, a system for that, and then I have my backpacking system. And I typically do more than like all year around day hiking until recently. Over the last 4 months is probably the least amount of hiking, for those of you that went with us yesterday, that I have done, because I'm dealing with an injury, than I have in the last 16 years. So I could tell yesterday, I was like, wow, I could really tell I haven't even been, out on my normal day hikes. And I don't live far from a nature preserve where there are 20 miles in this nature preserve. And I've walked more miles in that nature preserve than I have long distance hiking. So, so I just have two mindsets. I'm either carrying my day pack, or if I'm training for a section hike, I'll do what you do. I will build up my weight in my backpack. And I will get to the point where when I go onto the trail, I'm already used to everything. And I have to get used to staying out again overnight, which comes right back when you're used to it. I always say it takes 5 days. For me, it's 5 days. The first night is, okay, I'm not going to sleep very well. You know, the second night you sleep a little bit better. By the fifth day, you're so tired, you just completely pass out, and you have no problems sleeping after the fifth day. But I'm probably just a little bit different, because I know you and I've had conversations where you don't really. I know you walk, but you don't hike at all in between a bigger through hike.
I never put on a pack until I put on a pack and I go hiking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't walk around. I love the fact you do that, but I was also preparing on a what do you call it, treadmill, but at an angle for about 45 minutes or an hour. But I never put a pack on, and yet of course when I went out to California, I put this pack on. Oh my gosh! And we had 8 days of food as well. I mean, it was heavy, wasn't it? Those first couple of days, and so yeah, the physicality. It's a thing I know I should do. I just think, as with everything in this endeavour, you should do what makes you feel good. I know that I don't like walking around with a backpack unless I'm backpacking. So I just walk around my regular weight, and I did lose a bit of weight, so that was helpful as well. But I can tell that those who prepare better physically probably have got a better chance of getting over, getting over that first week or so. Because that first week is an assault upon the senses. You know, you're out there, and however well you think you've trained, the rocks and the roots and the downhills and the rain and everything like that is something you almost can't possibly be prepared for. So you're going to go out there with your pack on and so on, and you just have to face it and kind of get over it. So I try to get through that first 2 weeks without dying. And once I've got through that and I'm not dead, I can then start making more progress, and the miles start increasing as the days go on, and suddenly that physicality comes. But for men, the physicality comes in the legs. We talked about this before, that we end up really scrawny, we lose a lot of weight, and it's nearly all from the top part of our body, and the women tone up and they kind of feel physically better and so on. But I've told on lots of my shows, I've said that physicality will come if you just keep at it. It's the keeping at it that matters. How do you prefer? You go hiking?
We do hike twice a week, fully loaded, and I go to the gym 3 days a week.
Right. Wow, you're preparing.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to not getting up and going to the gym come February. You just get over it. But I think it's important to do that running and the weight training. I think it's helped me really prepare.
That's what I tried back home before I started mine. Tried going down to the gym and hitting the treadmill, and I'd even throw my full pack on and go down to the gym. Of course, people looked at me like I was an idiot walking on a treadmill with a full pack. And I mean, it might have helped a little bit, but I think with me it was getting on the trail and just going is what gradually got me.
I'm also trying to put on weight, contrary to some of the other women, that say they don't lose weight. I've actually had to put on weight
It'd be
meaningfully.
catastrophic if you lost too much weight.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to the Smokies, I came home 10 pounds lighter.
Oh wow!
Goodness.
Yeah, and I didn't eat a whole lot to start with.
Wow.
So that was a real eye-opener.
Jeff, just sign us up.
Yeah. I really dropped it, and I ate. I mean, I didn't deprive myself of anything, so I'm really
Your body must have
a
been
bit
in shock.
concerned.
I mean, really. I mean, it just probably.
Towards the end of my 2014 hike, I was having 6 Snickers and a jar of peanut butter a day, and losing weight. It was ridiculous because, but by then, you see, this is why I cannot understand going southbound, because the whole trail is set up to finish the toughest 2 states, which they clearly are, by far the toughest 2 states, and you've got 1,700 miles in your legs. Starting north and going south, I would think after those first 2 states, you think, oh, well, I've got 1,700 miles to go, it should be quite easy. I think you'd die of boredom, to be honest with you, if you're going south. I wouldn't enjoy that part of it at all. What about you, Betty? You used to stay fit?
No, I've worked with a trainer for a few years, and he works a lot on core because that he said is what helps your balance.
Sure.
And I think of you screaming out your number every time you fall. I didn't fall on the long trail, but I counted stumbles. And those stumbles would have been falls if I didn't have, I think,
How
the core.
interesting. Yeah.
I think he's spot on.
So the core helps with your balance. Yeah, okay. Well, I could have done with that a few times, yeah. And you know what? I continued with my shouting out the number when I fell when I was in California. I did too, didn't I? And after you realise you're not dead, you can then call out the number. It's okay. And how about you? Said you've been training for this?
Yeah, right now I'm doing about 40 to 50 miles a week, hiking and walking
With your pack?
with my pack. So the last 100 days before I leave has been full pack everywhere I go. And I get strange looks when I walk through Clearwater and wherever. Or if I'm...
homeless man with a pack again.
Exactly, yeah. He's got a nice pack for a homeless guy, you know. And, yeah, but also going into a gym 3 to 4 days a week as well. And so I'll do half my walk, go into the gym, do either treadmill or stair step, and then finish my walk. And so that's kind of my thing. And then weekends I usually try to go out. I do a lot of hikes in the swamps of Florida. And everywhere you go, it's a swamp. I mean, it's like, oh, it sounds like a great trail. No, it's a swamp. So I do that, and I practice my vlogging and all that kind of stuff. So.
Oh, right, you're doing that as well. Okay. What about you, Clay? You don't prepare, do you? You just go and walk?
Well, but I run every day, or now I walk occasionally instead of running. And I honestly, not that everybody has time or inclination to do it, but I guess I think it gives me a good base to start from, which I always start a hike feeling, you know, I'm going to get stronger, but I feel pretty strong to start with. So that's honestly what I do. It's just a habit. And I realize that not everybody's going to do that. But so honestly, I think the factor is similar to the way I learned how to train for marathons and ultra marathons. It's about hours on your feet. And so that, to me, even if you're not carrying weight, I mean, carrying weight is good because those hours, you know, impact you more. But I think if you want to get your feet used to it and get your muscles accustomed, because it's different from running. My running stinks when I come off after a through hike. It's just terrible because it's a different mechanic. So, you know, I think I look at it almost like marathon training, if people want to do it that way, which is just, you know, you're on your feet, you walk or you run or jog or do something just about every day. And then once a week, I think try to go longer and longer distance. If you have time on a weekend, walk 10 miles. It's just that time in the feet, adding weight and all that stuff. And then since we're talking physicality, I just want to say the feet to me are what matters the most. There's a really good book out there. It's probably more than you want, but I like it. I think Neville might have one actually here. It's called Fixing Your Feet. And it's a guy who just wrote every dang thing he could think of about feet. And it's more for like marathoners and ultra marathoners, but it totally applies to long distance hiking and everything. It's a great book. It sounds weird, like, what's wrong with that guy? He's got a book about feet, but it really has tons of information, and it will help you understand like what your feet are doing, why it hurts this way, what you can do. So obviously I'm a book guy. I like books, but I do think that's a great book, and it's like, to me, a reference book that should be in every single hostel. So feet are really important.
Cut your toenails. Definitely cut your toenails.
Definitely cut your toenails, and you know, get your shoes too big probably, or you will be losing some toenails and you won't have to cut them for a while.
I lost all 10 of mine first time. All 10.
And you know, it sounds ridiculous, and I certainly don't do it every day, but I don't like losing all of my upper body on a through hike. So I really try to do 25 push-ups at least every single day. And you'd be surprised how much that can keep you. And that strength matters. And if you're using poles the way I do, I very actively use poles going up and downhill. That will help. I'm not a believer in turning into a T-Rex. I actually think core, if you can. I hate working my core. I hate it. So I rarely do that, but I do work a little bit on my upper body while I'm on the trail, and I think that's important. Yeah, your footwear is going to matter. Different ones of us just have different levels of sensitivity and strength in our tendons and all that stuff. I honestly think foot problems, knee problems too, but mostly feet problems is what get people gone from the trail. So lots of that stuff, and then train. You know, I also wrote a book called The Trail is the Teacher about the AT. And if you want to go out there weighing 350 pounds and just start, just take it easy. Just do 5 miles a day. It will get you in shape if you keep after it. And it will teach you what you need to know. I always say, this is sort of more with the last session, but it's a little apropos here, is like doing the spreadsheets is fun. It's really fun to plan and prep, and you got your numbers, and here's how many calories I'm gonna eat every day, and every month I'm gonna stop here. And I believe that the minute you set foot on the trail, it just goes out the window. Just forget about it. All that stuff was fun, and now you can just set fire to it. That trail is gonna tell you, am I carrying too much weight? I don't care how much it weighs. Am I carrying too much weight? You're going to know. Did I bring the right stuff? You're gonna know. You know, how many miles should I do? It's going to tell you. You know, all of those things. So I really think it's a process that if you don't want to prepare, you know, physically, that's fine. Just be smart and listen to your body. I do know people who literally started with 5 or 6 miles a day, and by the time they hit Northern Virginia, they were doing 20s. So it's possible.
I would say to you though that, you know, while weight is important, this focus on getting as much weight down as possible is kind of important, but it's not crucial, because you do not want to be miserable out on trail. So if there's things you think you really would like to have with you, you've got to take some of those things. Now, it may be a luxury, but that luxury will sustain you for some nights when you're miserable as hell in the shelter, or you're just not comfortable doing what you're doing. If you've got a Kindle with you or something like that, you actually want to read, you want to read something, or a proper book even, you could do that. But don't deprive yourself of so much that you're carrying so little weight, because as Clay said, you know, you keep moving. I think it literally anybody, if they can, I think I used to use the expression, if they can walk 200 yards without requiring oxygen, they can do this trail. It will take them a lot longer, but once you get moving, we had a guy on the podcast, I think we mentioned him last night, he was 380 pounds when he started, and he took 3 days to do the approach trail. And he finished. I mean, how he did that is remarkable. And he lost about 180 pounds, 140 pounds in weight, because he kept moving forward. It took him 7 or 8 months, but he got there and he lost all this weight. So, you know, that physicality, as I always say, will come. Your muscles will start getting stronger. Now, your problem is you could get plantar fasciitis, you could get various other ailments that are going to hurt you. You need to treat plantar fasciitis with, is it a roller you use? Have you ever had plantar fasciitis? So I've never had a blister on the Appalachian Trail, not one.
I've seen a lot more unhappy ultralighters and ultralighters getting off the trail than I have seen the people like the guy in the PCT I met, no, in the CDT met, his name was 2 Ton for a reason. And he had a great time. Take what you want. And ultralighters, I have seen some miserably unhappy people, including that guy I referred to earlier. He'd never hiked before and he decided he was going to be an ultralighter. My strong advice to people is don't do your first hike as an ultralight hiker. I think it's a disaster in the making. Just go carry what you want, be comfortable, have fun, and then over time, if you want to reduce your weight, you can. I'll never be an ultralighter, never.
You can still get a far lighter tent or a hammock. Yeah. You can get a far lighter tent, you can get a lighter pack, so you can be sensible about what you buy, because every pound will make a difference to you as well. Have you prepared at all, John?
Just since I haven't gotten the pack yet, I haven't been able to do that, but basically just daily or weekly runs and hikes on the trails near me.
Right. Hey, do you feel it's coming on?
Yeah, I mean, it's, since I'm not carrying a load, it's kind of hard to tell, but,
I think you find your breathing improves. You start, first couple of days, I'm coughing all the time. Suddenly that cough goes and your lungs get clearer as well. So you get physically better the whole time you're on the trail. The problem is at the back end of that, if you're doing this for 6 months or 4 months or 5 months or 7 months, this is a bit of a war of attrition as well. So it will have an impact upon your body and you're going to hurt in most places. And I know that after I finished both my hikes, I couldn't walk upstairs. After the first one, I couldn't walk upstairs for about 6 months. I couldn't run upstairs, rather. I could just about walk upstairs. So, you know, your knees can get impacted as well. So just accept the fact that this is taking a lot out of your body, and after that period of, say, 5 or 6 months, you're kind of going to be glad it's over, because it's beating you up. And I know that each time I went home, I felt totally beaten up, and I needed to rest for probably a week before I could even physically consider doing anything else at all. So getting as strong as you can to start with is probably a good idea, but you will definitely gain that, and then towards the end you'll need the strength you've gained, because you will start losing it quite a lot towards the end. How about the rest of you? What else have you done?
I think one thing you said earlier applies to this too, with the physicality part, is treat yourself too. If you're physically having a bad day, we spoke about the aspect of it as well. If you're mentally having a bad day, it's okay to treat yourself to a shower, a hotel room, nice accommodations, whatever you consider nice, and take care of yourself. Because I think what I have found is, you know, I have an objective, I want to go out, I want to do a certain thing, and sometimes I didn't take care of myself because the objective overcame, you know, my physical being or my mental being. And I've just learned over the years that, you know what? It's okay if I don't want to go out and do this, or it's okay if I want to take, you know, even a week off. Give yourself that time. You know, you're going to be out for 7 months or however long. You've already given yourself that time. You haven't put a limitation on yourself. So if something happens, you can take 2 or 3 days off, or even a week, and that's okay. I know you went home, you know, you got bit by a dog.
I did.
And,
I'm scared of all dogs.
and you decided that the best thing for you was to go recover at home.
Yeah, it's funny actually, when I was diagnosed with cellulitis, which is a bacterial infection of the skin, and so I said to the doctor, I said, what's that about then? He says, it's about a 30% mortality rate. Well, that's not great. So 70% living rate, then that's pretty good. But I didn't feel comfortable in this comfortable hotel room with my feet up for 2 or 3 days, which is what I tried to do. I thought, he said, take 10 days off trail. So, and I thought, oh, I'm hiking, there's no way I can take 10 days. So how about 2 days? So he said, all right, well, lie in bed with your feet up for 2 days. I said, okay, I'll do that. So I lay in bed for 2 days, and this wasn't getting any better. And there's something about your own home, your own doctor you feel more comfortable with, you know. And I'd only gone into an urgent care, and they told me that this was cellulitis, and they gave me some antibiotics. And I just felt exposed. You know, I was by myself, and I just felt I must go home. So I went home, got a return ticket. I insisted upon a return ticket, because if I got a one-way ticket, I didn't think I'd come back. And you talk about spending a week off trail. I can see why people don't come back, because you get back into your mindset of being at home and then flushing toilets and fresh showers and fresh clothes. And that's a very alluring thing to suddenly have. But if you've got yourself, firstly in the right mindset, but secondly, you're physically in shape, if you feel the need, as Julie said, to treat yourself, do it. Don't resist that temptation, because you'll benefit from it. And you've got a dog as well. Would he tell you he wants a rest?
You could tell.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Does he become listless?
he does.
Really?
Yeah, he'll just start sitting down in the trail.
Right.
Yeah,
There's a bit-
you can, you know your animals.
Yeah.
You know, you're with them all the time, so I can tell when he's not happy.
Sure. And you were pretty fit in California. Do you stay fit or not?
I try to.
Are you preparing for hiking or just preparing for
For
life?
that, I was running 4 times a week, and then I was also doing. I started doing carrying weights. Military people rucking, which is basically the same thing as backpacking.
Right.
A pack with a weight in it, and when the guy told, sorry,
Except less fun.
yeah, well, not getting paid enough. So when I spoke to the gentleman there, and he told me prepare for a 45-pound pack, I was like, whoa! I never carry anything any near up that high. So I started carrying, I bought a pack with, it probably weighed 50 pounds total, with a 45-pound weight. It's actually 46 when I weighed it. So with the pack, it's like 50 pounds.
Wow.
And I would start walking in that, and I started doing a half mile on the days I didn't run. And then I would work my way up, usually about 3 miles. And it was probably, that was 7 days a week I was doing, and it was too much. So obviously I got a overuse injury.
You got to cut it back.
And I ended up not doing anything for the 3 weeks before,
Oh, really?
just so that I would make sure. I was afraid to get hurt, and I wanted to heal. So, but obviously keeping in shape, trying to keep in shape anyway.
Well, we had a guy on the show, on the podcast once, who said before he hiked, for about a month before, he would hike with a 60-pound pack every day, because he knew he wasn't taking anything like that on the trail. So when he put his 30-pound pack or 35-pound pack on, it felt like nothing. You know, he was really, really prepared for it. So whatever works for you is the important thing. And if you've, I mean, you look like you're in shape anyway, so you're ready to go, I'm sure, physically. But I think you've got to feel what's comfortable with you, because I can tell you, certainly from me and from many people I met on that first day on both of my hikes, when you walk down from the top of Springer and you start hiking and you get 2 or 3 miles in, it's a bit of a slap round the face, because it's not what you're used to doing, and it's whatever it is a different feeling than being on a treadmill or being on a stepper and with these rocks and roots to get over and so on. It becomes an entirely different thing. So all that preparation, I'm sure, is great. I'm sure if I ever did another long distance hike, I would not prepare again. and I'll just get there, because I'm kind of determined to get there. But physically, you need to do what works for you. Anything else?
Physicality is so personal. And knowing your body, and really how to fuel your body, that comes, with the physical part, which I'm terrible at, so I don't even know why I mentioned that. But, you do need fuel, you do need calories. The first time I ever went to Amicalola Falls, I was really excited, to finally see that white blaze at Springer Mountain. And I had gone under the arch, and I was getting ready to walk up, and I saw a guy coming back. I'll never forget him. He had a huge pack. He had like Bermuda shorts on. He had like a tank top on, and he quit. On the approach trail. And he was like, I quit. I'm not going up those steps. I go, oh my God. Like, are they that bad? And he said, I'm just not doing this. I'm just not doing it. And ironically, that same day when I got to Springer, there was a lady up there, and she had literally a suitcase that you would roll to the airport. So I don't know, I never asked her if she just rolled it the mile up to Springer, but she was up there cutting tags off of like her hiking clothes and stuff like that. So just in that 8.8 mile stretch from going under the arch up to Springer, I just met 2 totally different individuals whose, that mentality and their physicality were totally different. I mean, it's just nothing that I would ever comprehend for myself, but somewhere, some way, they decided that was, their thing. So you're going to see stuff like that. You're going to see people unload their packs in the shelters in Georgia. And, 5-person tents and tarps big enough for the largest boat you can think of and things like that. So, yeah, to me, that's the fun part of it.
My young cousin and I were at Hawk Mountain Shelter, which is 8 miles from the summit of Springer. And long story short, I'd already done the Smokies and then come back to meet her. And I started pegging people already. There were the party kids. They'll be gone by Damascus. The kids who think that it's just fun and you're getting drunk and smoking all the time. And then there was the midlife crisis guys. They were between 40 and 60, and big bellies, big guys, usually all the really nice equipment because they got money that they've been working. And there was this one guy in an all yellow jacket sitting at the Hawk Mountain Shelter talking to my cousin. And she said, well, where do you live? He said, I live right here in the Appalachian Trail. My wife kicked me out, and this is where I live. And I'm just going to do this the next 6 months and all this stuff. And then I headed out before her the next morning. And when I met her up in the afternoon, she said, hey, remember that guy in the yellow who told us he lived on the Appalachian Trail? I said, yeah. She said, well, Cooper Gap, 4 miles past Hawk Mountain Shelter. I passed him. He was down in the parking lot there on his phone saying, honey, I swear it'll be different this time. That was the end of that. Please let me come home. This sucks.
It'll take you by surprise. I tell you. I promise you, it will take you by surprise.
I was very arrogant starting the AT because I came from out west, and we literally get taught in school, those eastern mountains, they're small, they've been here a long time, they're all worn down. I'm like, I got this covered, and I absolutely was like being kicked in the stomach when I started out in Georgia, like, oh, okay, well, this isn't easy at all. It was a lot harder than anything I'd done in Colorado, so.
And I don't know what you do when you first start. I know those of you who listen know that I always say the best advice anybody can ever get in terms of keeping the physicality or getting the physicality is really start out slower than you think you need to. Just get yourself into the hike because you cannot take on this trail. I met people who did a 40-mile first day, which is fine. And he finished and he wanted to do it in 70 days or something like that. His trail name was 70, in fact. But do 8 miles that first day, get to that shelter, get your tent set up, work out how it works, because however many times you set up your tent in your back garden, or in my case, in my living room floor, which was tile, you've got to find how to get a flat spot. And that isn't as straightforward as it might seem. And the Appalachian Trail, particularly in those early days when there's a lot of people around, all the best spots have normally gone by the time you get into camp. You've got the one that's about that angle, and that is a disaster. You're going to end up in a pile the next morning amongst your clothes, so you need to be careful with that. So just do 8, 10 miles, because in Georgia, those shelters are spaced at that nice interval. Don't say, I think I can get to the next shelter. If you only think you can get there, you probably can, but you will not enjoy it, and you'll feel terrible the next day. So just first 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 days, just have the discipline just to say, I'm only going to do this number of miles today and no more. Because there will be, as Jester said, somebody will say to you, come on, let's get to the next shelter. We can do it.
Yeah.
It's not a race. Don't take it on. It will kick your ass every single time. There's nothing else I can really say about physicality. It is there. You'll get it or you won't. And you can prepare as much as you wish. But whatever happens, if you're still on the trail by the time you get to New York, New Jersey or whatever, you're in great physical shape. You can do those things. You just have to look after your body the whole time. I get cramp a lot. Do any of you get cramp when you're hiking? And when I'm
At night I do.
yeah, when I'm in my sleeping bag, to get out of that sleeping bag quickly because of the cramp is very, very difficult to do.
I gotta say the same thing with trying to get out of a hammock when you get a Charlie horse.
Oh, really?
It's not the funnest thing in the world, but.
Does anybody have questions about physical stuff?
There aren't really, are there? Because it's such a personal thing, I guess.
Are we counting sickness and all that?
Oh, well, you talk us through Giardia.
I just had Giardia, that's why he's mentioning that. Ugh, don't get it. Well, I think what I'll say, this is probably obvious to you all, but everybody's like, bears and murderers, that's what you got to worry about. No, you don't. You should worry about norovirus and Lyme disease. And I don't know how they would know this, but the ATC has had a statistic. I think it's something like 20% of hikers get Lyme disease on this trail. I did, and it really is awful. So that's a physical thing. I mean, illness to me is, I wouldn't even ever think twice about a bear. I wouldn't even think once about getting murdered. It just doesn't happen statistically. It doesn't. That's not the dangerous thing. You're not going to get bitten by a snake. You're not going to get run over by a moose. But you stand a really, really good chance of getting norovirus, and you stand a decent chance of getting Lyme disease and Giardia. I mean, all of you are probably more careful with your water than I am. You know, there are places you can drink. I drink from springs high on ridges, and so I don't know. To me, that's physicality. Those are the things that really, really, I think, can wreck people's trail, and you just have to, sanitation, right? You keep don't touch anybody, basically. Don't touch anybody's hand. And I hiked briefly with a couple of people, they were two married people in their 30s. They worked in health care in the mists, Optimist and Purple Mist. And they told me this thing. I thought it was a great line. It's like, you can touch your poop, you just can't touch anybody else's poop. And that's the rule. So like, you're not going to hurt yourself with your own poop. You can't do that. It's already part of your system. So it's like, whatever. But what you want to never do is touch anybody's microscopic poop or anything. And that's why we fist bump or elbow.
They did do studies though a while back. This was probably about 3 years ago that I heard about this, where they done studies where they took two groups of people. Actually, it was three groups of people. You had one group that didn't filter their water, one group that filtered their water, and one group that done the chemical, okay? To see if there was any, correlation of who would get, Giardia, who would get sick, whatever. And it was pretty much equal across the board.
I think I remember.
So then they took that a little bit further to find out, who would wash their hands before they would eat, or after they got done using the bathroom, and who didn't. And they found out the ones that were getting sick were the ones that didn't wash their hands or use sanitizer after they would use the privy or anything like that. So, they were pretty much getting themselves, sick or, while they're in the privy or whatever. So, I mean, a big thing is just make sure you got hand sanitizer out there. And
I don't know whether they still do, but certainly in some of the shelters they had big tubs of hand sanitizer to use. So it's kind of available there. Less so up north, but certainly in the south I found that. There was,
Can I make a comment about the Lyme disease?
of course, yeah.
As far as ticks, there's also a tick-borne disease called alpha gal. It's from the Lone Star tick. It's no joke. I had it. It's an allergy to mammals, so any red meat.
Oh, that one, yeah.
It took me months to figure out what was wrong with me.
Wow.
Months, and it was from a Lone Star tick, and I documented when I got a tick on me that year, and sure enough, it took, when I went to my doctor, my son actually diagnosed me, he's a nurse, and he says, Mom, you got that allergy to red meat. And I went to my doctor and said, I need this blood test, and he had never heard of it, because it's not real common, I don't believe, but it's from the Lone Star tick, and it can be in your system 8 months to 5 years.
Wow.
So every time you eat red meat, if you get an incredible cramp in your gut, I thought it was working out too much. I blamed it on so many different things. 'Cause I don't eat that much red meat. But when few times that I did, and you can get hives, you can go into anaphylactic shock from it. And one time I had hives. I thought I had sugars again, and it was like, oh man, I'm going to the instant care place. Took a shower, made an appointment. By the time I got there, they were all gone, and I still didn't put it together. It was hives. So it was over a year before I could eat meat again. 4th of July, I was so hungry for a steak that, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And I was fine. So
And you all do tick
it
checks?
takes a long time to get out of your system.
So you've got nowhere to check you, because if you're with something, you can't check your back, can you? So you can lift up your shirt, and somebody behind you will see it as well.
But you know what I find? Anytime I've had a tick on me, you know you've got a tick on you. They crawl. You can feel that thing.
while we're talking about ticks, now I don't know if this was just pure quinky dink or what. Whenever I done my hike, I went to the store and I bought some garlic tablets, and I bought the highest concentrate of them that I could. And every morning before, whenever I'd eat my breakfast, I'd take a couple of those tablets, and at night whenever I'd eat my dinner, I'd take a couple of tablets. I mean, I smelled like garlic whenever I would sweat, but I never got a tick on me that for my whole hike. So I don't know if it was actually the garlic or if it was just pure, quinky dink. But whenever I go to do the trail again, I will do that same thing.
And
Now,
that
did that
works
help?
for a well too.
Does that help you with the black flies as well?
I don't know, the black flies are.
No, nothing helps that, but except 100% DEET.
Yeah, it's a good idea if you have a physician that you know to request a prescription for doxycycline, which is a very basic antibiotic, before you go. Here's why. they can't titrate for Lyme disease anyway for at least 2 weeks and usually closer to a month. So when you start experiencing symptoms, and if you go, like I had to go to the emergency room in Reading, Pennsylvania, because my temperature was so high, all they're going to do is they're going to take your history, and based on symptoms and based on circumstances, I'm hiking the AT, they're going to preemptively prescribe you doxycycline because it's a very basic drug. You won't be able to titrate and know for sure whether you had Lyme for at least several weeks after that to see if you have the antibiotics to the spirochete. So if you know your doctor, say, hey, I'm going to be hiking, I'm going through tick endemic areas, just bring your prescription of doxycycline. And when you start feeling those flu-like symptoms over a couple days, and and it's you don't have to have the bullseye rash, that 60 to 70% of people show that, the other 30 to 40 do not. But you'll know whether I didn't know, I was stupid, I thought I had the flu, but it kept persisting, and then a local up in Pennsylvania said, hey, you might have it. It's actually a great idea. Out west it doesn't matter as much. On this trail, I absolutely would carry doxycycline, and then you just handle it, and you can avoid going to the Reading, Pennsylvania emergency room. It's a lot less expensive.
Our doctor's pretty okay on.
There's an overall worry, right? Infectious disease people we do overuse antibiotics, but this is such a basic one. It is broad spectrum, but it is what you need. My doctor is willing to give it to me whenever I come out here in this environment. And I think it's a great idea on the AT, I really do. And then, seriously, that's all they're going to do. They don't know for sure that you have it. They're going to prescribe it anyway. And it kicked mine. It took a few days for me to feel better. But
have you had any effects of it afterwards?
Not really. So the CDC says, hey. The CDC says there is such a thing as post-Lyme disease syndrome, I think they call it. There's a constellation of symptoms that people get. They still highly do not recommend what some doctors do, which is sort of chronic antibiotic use. That's the controversy. But I will say this, I don't think I ever fully recovered from it. I don't think I've ever been where I was before I got it. That's my opinion. It's anecdotal and I might be wrong, but I just think that I didn't exactly go downhill, but I never did get back to that level of fitness, and I started having joint stuff that I'd never had.
You're getting older, Clay.
Yeah, it could be that too. But
Benny, you mentioned the core earlier on and the balance and so on. And I know Jester only hikes with one pole, but for me, as a person who falls over regularly on the trail, and despite the falling over, I found that those poles saved me many a time because my balance is lacking. The older I've got, I found my balance is lacking a little bit as well. So I always have poles. Do you have poles?
Hell yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Do you all have poles when you hike? You do? Okay.
When I started my first hike, I thought, that's for like suburban ladies who put on jewels and perfume, and they go 3 miles and chitter chatter at the top. And this young woman who inspired me to do it, she said, do not be stupid, take poles. So I stole my elderly mother's poles. She was 80 years old. She couldn't use them anymore. And you know what? I would never go on a long hike without poles, never, especially on this trail. And I still have those same poles that I stole from my mom. But really, really, there are cool people who don't, but I don't know why you would. You lessen the impact on your joints. I use it to go down really as much as going up, and I pull myself up too, but it's that downhill. I plant my poles and basically step off into midair with my weight on poles.
That's the other thing. Somebody came in yesterday with Walmart poles.
Yeah.
Don't trust them.
Oh no, I can't find my good ones, so when I find them,
Yeah, I took Walmart once before because I broke some and I had to use them. They collapsed on me 3 times that day, and I do what you do. I sometimes literally put all my weight, and then hop down, and they collapsed on me.
And when you get on some of these steep downhills on this ridiculous trail, I would hate doing it without poles. Also, just my bias, I wouldn't go with the carbon fiber poles, which are super lightweight, because I've seen them snap so many times. I've got these old Leckies that are aluminum, and they're still going strong. My mom probably bought them in '95. I have no idea, but the carbon fiber poles break real easy. Real easy. I wouldn't put my weight on those.
I use them more for that lymphatic drainage. Like I don't get the, you know, because it keeps your hands
Totally,
up.
totally, yeah.
So that's a big benefit as well. Not only the balance, but just to keep from that lymphatic drainage in your hands.
You got the fat hands. haven't you?
Yeah, that because if I don't use them, I'm just I got my hands up walking down the trail, and yeah.
If you're a very active pole user like I am, it actually is. My shoulders can be tired at the end of the day, so it's an upper body little bit of a workout. It's good. Over 10 hours, it adds up.
It's really, that's it on physicality. I think you can try to prepare as much as you wish, but I think the trail will also get you into much better shape than any other preparation can do, and it will surprise you. Sorry?
Stretching regularly on the trail.
Some people do. I stretch in my tent. Yeah.
I try and stretch my calves and my feet. I'll stand next to a rock and put my feet on them and, you know, pull up like this, and that helps here, helps the calves, and it does. I feel it to help the bottom of the foot for the plantar fasciitis.
My friend Alan, who's racked up almost the Triple Crown now, he's age 75, started this when he was 65 at retirement. He's also ridden his bike across the country twice east to west and 3 times north to south. I mean, he's insane. He brings a roller. He takes that weight and he rolls himself every night vigorously. I like to think I'm going to stretch, and I don't, because I get to my tent and I'm lazy. But I've watched Alan do it, and he swears by it. And, you know, he's older, and he's done some pretty amazing stuff. So if I weren't such a weenie about weight, I would take one, you know, but it's not a bad idea.
It's just, the only stretching I do is trying to put my shoes on at the beginning of the day. Oh my gosh, that pulls everything.
I have all these ambitions, like, you know what? I'm going to do my upper body every day. I'm going to stretch every day. And I'm going to meditate every day. No.
Well, that was my plan whenever I started too, but
It's hard to do. You just get there and you're tired and you're hurting. You got a million things to do, and then you want to go to bed.
When we were away last week, a couple of weeks ago in Whitney, our guides, one guy's 44, he led the trip. The other guy's a young 23-year-old Italian guy. They were doing push-ups.
Yeah.
And they were also racing each other up the mountain as well. Yeah, it's crazy.
Push-ups are a good idea, though.
Push-ups are a great idea, yeah, if you can do them. Yeah.
There is a company, I think it's Rawlogy or Rawology, Rawology. They sell cork products, cork balls. They also have, I don't know, there may be 6 inches rollers, cork rollers, that are good for the tent.
The cork balls are good for your feet, too.
Yeah. So, and they're cheap, too. And light, and throw those in your pack, that is no problem.
I used one, I didn't carry one, but somebody I knew on the CDT this summer had one, and I liked it. I think it's a good idea for plantar fasciitis prevention and all that. Not a bad idea.
Oh, sorry, I keep thinking of different things. You mentioned feet earlier on, and I saw one of you has double socks last night.
I do.
But yeah, the Injinji toe socks, which I say I've never had a blister on the AT, never one. Yeah. And I could have the Injinji toe socks, which separates obviously all the toes, and then have Darn Tough socks on top of them as well, and that really has looked after my feet perfectly for that period of time. So if you want to give yourself a shot at looking after them, those Injinjis, and you can actually get sock liners. Some people just have those socks, but you know, sock liners and then socks on top of them. It's worked for me perfectly. So I may just be lucky. You know, you may still get them.
while you're talking about feet as well, the insoles, making sure you got good insoles in your shoes is a big help as well.
I think we have a session, Agony of the Feet, and I've learned my lesson very, very the hard way, and we'll talk about this. But doing feet exercises have really helped me. I could not, I ended up going to physical therapy, and I could not put my 4 toes down and rotate my big toe, my 4 toes, I could not do that. Like, I could not get my brain to connect my toes. And I'm telling you what, that is hard to do that. And I would do it 1 minute at a time, you know, both feet. And I built my, you build yourself up 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And the way he explained it to me is it's like your hand. So when you move your first finger, you think about the muscles that it affects. The same thing with your toes. Your big toe affects everything here, the middle toe. And it's almost like people's toes have become almost useless. And a lot of injuries come from the midfoot to the back of the foot because we have forgotten that our toes are claws. So I will be forever, the rest of my life, aggressive on my foot exercises because you could build your feet up just like you can a bicep or your, thighs or whatever. And I never really thought that through until I started getting foot injuries.
I had to do a lot of foot therapy, and they had me picking marbles up off the floor.
Yeah, I did that too. You pick them up,
you pick the marble up, and
yeah,
it's hard.
It's very, very hard when your feet are, and especially a lot of times you'll look, and I look at everybody's feet now, so I apologize if I look at your feet. It's weird. I have this thing now. When you get an injury somewhere, you look at other people like, you're like, oh, they're on their way. But I have seen people on the trail, their toes are like this. Their toes, this first toe is overlapping the big toe. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, we got to work that out. We got to get this muscle over here, this big toe over there. But I'll go over fun stuff like that with agony, when we go over agony of the feet. But I never did. I never did exercises for my feet, and that has been my number one mistake. So talking about physicality.
Okay. Well, we're all physically ready then.
Yeah, there you go. We're all going to get your toe socks ready. We're going to be doing some toe and foot exercises. It's really a challenge if you've never learned, and I'm learning now how to move my toes individually. And it is, I couldn't do it. I could not.
One of the yoga things is spreading your toes. Yeah. And a lot of people can't do that.
Can't do it?
Like, I've been in yoga classes and people cannot, because that's the thing, is like spread your toes, stretch.
My pinky toe was inoperable. It's still, in this one, I still cannot lift it on its own. Just cannot make it do it. So when you're walking, that toe is like, your other toes are compensating for all those muscle areas in your feet, so.
I've never thought of that or heard of that before. The thought of independently moving my pinky.
And the first time I went to physical therapy, they were like, okay, do this. And I'm like, I have no muscle in my feet, just no strength to individually do things. It's getting better now, but yeah, so I think that would have helped me in the very beginning, because you could do these exercises in your shoes if your shoes fit properly. If you don't have room in your shoes to move your toes, then you got issues with your shoes. So,
Hey, Austin, I know you're filming away here, so tell us what you think about the physicality. What do you do to prepare? Because you're a fit guy anyway.
So stretching for me is a big one.
Right.
I find, and then we talked about preparation. One of the things, so my knees are my weak point. And so one of the things I do well before any hike and just general fitness is exercising my legs. So not just running, but walking up and down stairs, stepping up, stepping down, stepping up, stepping down, to get my knees used to that. Was one of the big things that I worried about the most for our long distance trail we did. Because I'm a weekend warrior, and so I'd come home from a 2 or 3 day hike and my knees would hurt, but it'd be okay because I'm at home now. When you're on a long distance hike and your knees hurt after 2 or 3 days, well, guess what? You're going to be hiking another 15, 10, whatever, however many miles you do the next day. So you have to think long term. I've never tried the toe socks before, but I had the opposite effect where I found that double layered socks actually caused blisters for me.
Oh, really?
And I didn't realize it until after I was just like, I got to try something else. And so I just did the single layer darn tough socks and I hiked 220 miles on John Muir Trail without one blister. And so it goes back to that. This physicality thing is important. It's a personal thing for each.
Or the fit of the shoe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if your feet are wet. I've gotten blisters after my feet have been wet. The only time I've got a blister.
So yeah, it's there's everything that you've heard so far is like all good ideas, and it's just incumbent upon you to figure out which one works best.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
you.
Some people are just prone to certain things. And the knees thing, I'm shocked my knees don't hurt. My knees after my 2014 hike were terrible. I've had no problem with them since I recovered though. The 2019 hike, no problem with my knees at all. I've done other hikes as well.
But you got your quads stronger, so that
Yeah.
protects your knees.
And funnily enough, I know it wasn't an onerous hike from here to Dismal Falls at all. It was easy enough. But I still felt I had out my legs from our hike a few weeks ago, because that strength was still there, and I felt great, and it was surprising to me, because I thought I'd be gasping every 20 yards again. But no, I was fine this morning.
The biggest surprise on the 2 hikes I did this summer was the terrain. You know, you can walk all you want on pavement or gravel roads, but when you're on the trail and you're going from root to rock to slope to step up to step down, you know, your body has to be totally fit to handle that.
Yeah, you're particularly Pennsylvania, your feet are at an angle very often, and there's literally nothing you can do with it. The core, I met somebody who did Pilates. Oh, it was when we were away as well. Who did Pilates specifically for his core, specifically for hiking, and he said it has improved his hiking 100% by having that core well done. So if I was ever to do something like that again, I think I might try something like that. You know, and that balance thing. I think the older I've got anyway, I feel the balance is even worse than it used to be. So I'm always expecting to fall over at some stage. Okay, I think we're done with that.